Hello Revolution students and welcome back to another video on the Russian Revolution Area of Study 2. In this video I'm going to continue our study of the Red and White Terror, that new topic that has been added to the 2022 study design. We used to just study the Red Terror, but now we're going to study the White Terror as well. And the focus of this video is just on the White Terror itself. So let us get into it. The White Terror principally occurred between 1918 and 1919, and particularly in the south of Russia in the Ukraine. Most of it was instigated by troops under General Denikin's command, that White Army commander. And the Whites conducted their terror in the areas they controlled just as brutally as the Bolsheviks did. They killed peasants, and they also, like the Bolsheviks, undertook grain requisitioning. So you would have studied a lot about grain requisitioning under the Bolsheviks. Well, the Whites did exactly the same thing in the areas they controlled. They took the grain from the peasants. It happened, as I said before, in southern Russia, and it was also very anti-Semitic in nature. So the Whites in Denikin's army, as well as Cossacks and other Ukrainian units attached to his army, targeted Jewish communities. They undertook pogroms against Jews in 1919. They targeted the Jews because they believed the Jews were allied to or supportive of the Bolsheviks, since many of the Bolshevik leaders were of Jewish background. So some examples being Trotsky, Kamenev, and Zinoviev. There were also many Jews who were members of the Cheka. Estimates of the number of Jews that were killed in the Ukraine between 1919 and 1921 vary. Pipes gives numbers between 50,000 and 200,000. Thies, you can see there, he gives an estimate of about 150,000 Jews who were killed in the Ukraine. And he takes that figure from a Jewish report written by Jewish organizations in Soviet Russia not long after the time. And that report itself was released from the Soviet archives, I think, in the late 1990s. Okay, let's have a look at some key quotes about the White Terror. The first is from Pipes. On Jasinski's instructions, the Cheka took few Jewish hostages. This policy was not motivated by preference for Jews. Hostages were to serve as a guarantee against the Whites executing captured Bolsheviks. Since it was felt that the Whites did not much care one way or the other what happened to Jews, taking them hostage would have served no purpose. I think the fact that many Jews were also members of the Cheka would have also informed this policy of Jasinski's. The next quote. The local non-Jewish population in the majority of cases took no part in the pogroms, treating them coldly and even with sharp hostility, writes a contemporary Jewish scholar. In the majority of cases, the local Christian population took a lively part in the fate of the Jews, hiding them in their homes, defending them, sending to this end delegations to the military, that being the White Command, General Denikin's command. There can be no doubt that many Jews owe their survival to this circumstance, and without it, the number of victims would have been immeasurably greater, and that is from Richard Pipes. So we can see there that the local population actually supported, hid, tried to protect the Jews against this White Terror unleashed by General Denikin's forces. And the final quote here is from General Budberg, who was a white general, and he wrote, the lads, the white troops, do not seem to realise that if they rape, flog, rob, torture and kill indiscriminately and without restraint, they are thereby instilling such hatred for the white government they represent that the swine in Moscow, the Bolsheviks, must be delighted at having such diligent, valuable and beneficial collaborators. So this white general, General Budberg, he recognised that the poor treatment that the whites were inflicting upon the populations that they controlled only made these populations more supportive of the Bolsheviks and made it more difficult for the whites to win. Let's now look at a couple of historical interpretations about the White Terror. So the first one is from Michael Lynch, and he writes, As in most civil wars, the opposing sides accused each other of committing atrocities. Both Reds and Whites did undoubtedly use terror to crush opposition in the areas they seized. The actual fighting was not unduly bloody, it was in the aftermath, when civilian population had been cowed, that the savagery usually occurred. The Reds gained recruits by offering defeated enemy troops and neutral civilians the stark choice of enlistment or execution. Although the Reds imposed a reign of terror, the Whites' own record in ill-treating local populations was equally notorious. So what Lynch is arguing there is that the White Terror and the Red Terror was just as bad as each other. Our next historical interpretation is from Fige. But there was also an element of sheer class war and revenge in their Whites' violence, as in so many acts of the White Terror, which was a mirror image of the class resentment and hatred that drove the Red Terror. Terror lay at the heart of both regimes. The Whites were the avengers of those who had suffered at the hands of the revolution. They had every reason to seek vengeance, not just against the despised peasantry, but against the Bolshevik Jews and intellectuals who had stirred them up. So, Fige, like Lynch, is arguing that the White Terror was just as bad as the Red Terror. And finally, we have a historical interpretation from Richard Pipes. They, Ukrainian Jews, quickly became disenchanted with white policies that tolerated pogroms and excluded Jews from the administration. After experiencing white rule, Ukrainian Jewry turned anti-white and looked to the Red Army for protection. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed my video on the White Terror, and I shall see you next time. Goodbye.